Back in the year 2000, Christian Bale was genuinely struggling to figure out how to play Patrick Bateman.
Right, the literal psychopath in American Psycho.
Exactly. He just could not crack the character.
Yeah.
Like looking everywhere for inspiration and coming up totally empty.
Until he turned on the TV.
Yes. So according to the director, Mary Herron, Bale happens to catch this David Letterman interview with Tom Cruise.
Oh man, this is such a wild anecdote from the sources.
It really is, because Bale found exactly what he was looking for. He described seeing this terrifying, intense friendliness with absolutely nothing behind the eyes.
It's just such a chilling observation. And I mean, it instantly frames everything we think we know about, well, the biggest movie star on the planet.
So welcome to today's deep dive. Our mission today is to take this massive stack of sources you've handed us.
That is a huge stack.
Oh, massive. We're talking recent industry news, deep dive profiles, historical award lists, and we're going to pull apart the ultimate Hollywood enigma.
Because the timing for this is just perfect.
Exactly. Today is Sunday, March 29, 2026. Tom Cruise has just received an Academy Honorary Award for Lifetime Achievement.
Right.
He is currently being hailed as, like, the absolute savior of the theatrical movie experience. And yet, simultaneously, he is executing this massive, super risky pivot back to his auteur acting roots.
It is a phenomenal cultural shift to witness in real time. I mean, we are watching a man manage a billion-dollar legacy while at the same time fiercely guarding a deeply controversial personal life.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because that intensity Christian Bale noticed.
The friendliness with nothing behind the eyes.
Yeah, that relentless, impenetrable drive. It didn't just, appear out of nowhere the first time someone asked him to hang off the side of an airplane.
No, absolutely not.
The sources detail a childhood that was basically defined by pure chaos. By the time he was a teenager, he had attended 15 different schools in 14 years.
I mean, imagine the psychological toll of that.
Right.
You were perpetually the new kid. You never have time to establish a social foothold, let alone any real sense of safety.
And the home environment wasn't any better, was it?
Zero sanctuary. The sources highlight that Cruise has openly described his father as a, quote, merchant of chaos, a bully, and a coward.
Wow.
He learned at a very formative age that the world is unpredictable and, if things go wrong, he would be the one taking the hit.
He even had a brief stint at a Catholic Franciscan seminary in Cincinnati, right?
He did.
He actually aspired to be a priest. But that ended abruptly when he and a friend were caught with liquor. So he is constantly moving, constantly being uprooted, and constantly navigating these hostile or strict environments.
Which is exactly how you forge a hypervigilant survival mechanism.
How so?
Well, when you are raised in relentless turbulence, you survive by controlling whatever microscopic part of the world you actually have authority over. For Cruise, that control manifested as this terrifying, singular focus on his own discipline.
Oh, there is a fantastic anecdote from the set of The Outsiders that illustrates this perfectly.
The hotel room one.
Yes. So Cruise is only 18 years old. He's practically a nobody in Hollywood at this point.
Just starting out.
Right. And his co-star, Rob Lowe, notes that when Cruise found out they had to share a room at the Plaza Hotel in New York, he went absolutely ballistic.
At 18.
At 18. He already had this unyielding, aggressive certainty about his status and his brand.
What's fascinating here is how we can map that childhood trauma directly onto the business of his modern career.
Wait, really? Like, how does that connect?
So we often talk about his intensity in terms of pop psychology, but it is actually the foundation of a highly calculated economic moat.
Okay, wait, explain that for me. Because it sounds like he treats his entire existence not just as a career, but as an extreme endurance sport, like a professional athlete who physically cannot turn off the game clock. Does this explain his messiah complex?
That is exactly it. So in business, an economic moat is a competitive advantage that protects your market share from rivals. Most actors build a moat through charm or, dramatic range. Cruise built his moat through extreme, uninsurable physical risk.
Oh, I see.
He realized that if he does his own stunts, if he actually physically risks his life, he offers a theatrical experience no other star is willing to replicate.
That makes so much sense. It's not just an adrenaline addiction. It's a total monopoly on a specific type of blockbuster spectacle.
And that monopoly gave him the ultimate leverage during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Oh, right, because everyone else was going to streaming.
Exactly. When every other studio was dumping their blockbusters onto streaming platforms, Cruise famously fought Paramount tooth and nail to hold Top Gun, Maverick, for a theatrical release.
He wouldn't back down.
Not an inch. He used that economic moat to bend a legacy studio to his will.
And we all know how that played out. The sources note his films have hit a $13 billion global box office.
$13 billion. It's staggering.
Steven Spielberg literally walked up to him and told him he, quote, saved cinema's ass. Because he completely understands the mechanics of spectacle.
He really does.
Take the halo jumps he does. For anyone unfamiliar, a halo jump stands for high altitude, low opening. You are jumping out of a military aircraft at 25,000 feet.
Which is, let's just point out, the cruising altitude of a commercial airliner.
Exactly. There is practically no oxygen up there. You have to breathe pure oxygen for 20 minutes before the jump just to avoid decompression sickness or, the bends.
And you're basically falling out of the sky.
You are falling at 130 miles per hour, and you deploy your parachute at the absolute last possible second. The physical toll on the human body is immense, but because he actually does it, the audience feels the real stakes.
He has inextricably linked his physical survival to the financial survival of the movie theater industry. If Tom Cruise survives the jump, the movies survive.
But this is where the narrative takes a massive turn in our sources.
It really does.
He saved the physical cinema. The box office is secure. So now, according to the sources you've given us, he's transitioning to save his artistic legacy.
Right. He is pivoting back to the prestige dramas that defined his early career.
It is a complete structural overhaul of his career. It starts with his corporate strategy, doesn't it?
Yes. Let's look at the deal he just structured. He struck a major new strategic partnership with Warner Bros. Discovery CEOs Michael DeLuca and Pam Abdi.
And he isn't just signing a multi-picture contract here.
No, he is physically setting up an office on the Warner Bros. Lot in Burbank to develop original and franchise films.
Right. Having an office on the lot means you are essentially operating as a mini studio.
You aren't just an actor for hire anymore. You are a key architect of the studio's entire slate.
And this is a huge homecoming to the studio that gave him his most critically acclaimed early dramatic hits, like Risky Business and Magnolia.
But the crown jewel of this new Warner Bros. Partnership is his upcoming film, Digger, scheduled for an IMAX release this October 2026.
Oh, we have to talk about Diver. This is a $125 million black comedy directed by Alejandro G. Iñárritu.
And the premise of this movie is just a perfect meta-reflection of everything we just talked about.
Yes. Cruise plays a character named Digger Rockwell, who is described as the most powerful man in the world, racing to prove he is humanity's savior before a disaster he unleashed destroys everything.
It is the ultimate Messiah complex narrative, but turned entirely inward.
Yeah.
But the real story is how Iñárritu is forcing Cruise to shoot this film.
The technical details in the sources are just staggering. They filmed it in the UK on 35mm VistaVision film.
Okay, let's pause on that, because VistaVision is crucial to understanding the intense pressure on this set.
Break it down for us.
Standard 35mm film runs vertically through a camera. VistaVision runs horizontally.
Okay, so what does that do?
It pulls 8 perforations of film per frame instead of 4. That creates a massive high-resolution negative. It is a format Alfred Hitchcock used for Vertigo.
Oh, wow.
So by choosing VistaVision for a dark comedy, Iñárritu is aiming for an incredibly detailed, unforgiving cinematic look. There is zero margin for error.
And the lighting demands were just as punishing, right?
Absolutely.
His co-star, Riz Ahmed, gave an interview talking about the obsessive perfectionism on set. He noted that the legendary cinematographer, Emmanuel Lubezki, wasn't just using standard white or silver lighting reflectors.
No, of course not.
Lubezki was using 10 to 16 different shades of gray reflectors.
Which is virtually unheard of in typical production. By using 16 distinct shades of gray, Lubezki is trying to control the absolute micro-contrast of the shadows on the actors' faces.
That's insane.
He isn't just illuminating a scene, he is sculpting the light down to the millimeter.
So think about what that requires of the actor. If the light is dialed in to that microscopic degree, you literally cannot miss your physical mark by an inch.
Not an inch.
And Riz Ahmed described Iñárritu pushing the actors until they literally, quote, surrender to the ride, often doing 60 different takes of a single scene.
I mean, you try a scene 60 different ways under a microscope until your conscious brain short circuits and you just lose control.
Oh, wait, that feels incredibly jarring.
How so?
Well, Cruise has spent decades building an empire where he is the undisputed boss.
Right.
He controls the stunts, the release dates, the marketing. Why would he suddenly jump into an exhausting 60-take auteur comedy where he has to completely surrender his control to a notoriously demanding director?
Right.
Is this him building an auteur fortress? Is he just trying to buy the one thing he hasn't won a competitive Oscar, just as they hand him his 2026 honorary one?
That is the logical assumption, right?
Hmm.
But look at how Riz Ahmed actually described Cruise's energy during those 60 takes.
What did he say?
Ahmed said it was, quote, like nothing I've ever seen before. Cruise isn't actually surrendering his need for control. He is just transmuting it.
Oh, I see.
He is taking the exact same terrifying, unwavering focus he uses to jump out of a military plane, and he is applying it to the micromechanics of prestige, acting opposite this massive ensemble cast. You've got Jesse Plemons, Sandra Hiller, and John Goodman.
So he is basically attacking the craft of acting with the violence of a stuntman.
Exactly. It's the exact same engine, just a totally different arena.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because you cannot be a human being operating with this level of obsessive, microscopic perfectionism on a movie set without it spilling over into your real life.
No, you really can't.
The engine doesn't just shut off when a director calls cut. This need for absolute control bleeds directly into his personal life.
Right. To really understand Tom Cruise, you have to look at how he manages his private world as a closed-loop ecosystem.
A closed loop.
Yeah, it is very much like a submarine. The pressure on the outside from the global press is immense, so every single hatch has to be sealed perfectly from the inside.
And the physical manifestation of that submarine is East Grinstead, West Sussex.
It really is.
The sources paint such a bizarre juxtaposition here. Imagine you are walking through a quaint, historic English town of about 26,000 people. You've got beautiful Tudor buildings, sleepy streets.
Very picturesque.
Some outlets have actually dubbed it the UK's Twin Peaks because of the surreal contrast of what actually happens there.
Because East Grinstead is home to St. Hill Manor, which is the UK headquarters for the Church of Scientology.
Yes. You have local residents, like a woman named Diane Zhichao in the sources, who talk about casually spotting Tom Cruise walking past the local Iceland supermarket.
Just running errands.
Right. Or seeing followers in crisp black suits and red ties preaching on the mundane local bus to Hayward's Heath. And then you have the annual Patrons Ball.
Which is on an entirely different scale of reality.
Oh, completely. 7,000 Scientologists descending on this quiet, rural town. They have these massive car parks built out in fields, flowing wine, live entertainment that looks like a primetime television broadcast.
And the locals are just watching this happen.
Yeah, they're watching this massive corporate machinery operate right in their backyards, complaining that Tom Cruise's helicopter is causing a, quote, right old racket.
That's so distinctly British.
It is. There was also this hilarious anecdote from 2011 where John Travolta's team called the local East Grinstead KFC to book a table.
A table at KFC.
Yes. And the worker just flatly told them Mr. Travolta would have to queue up in the line like everybody else.
That's a funny detail, but it really highlights why he needs a place like East Grinstead. It offers this highly controlled, isolated environment, completely detached from the typical Hollywood paparazzi ecosystem.
Right.
However, maintaining that closed loop is incredibly difficult when the organization you are tied to is constantly generating global headlines.
And to be clear, as we dive into this part of the sources, we are impartially reporting the facts, the historical events, and the legal challenges exactly as they are outlined in the materials you've provided us.
Absolutely.
We are looking at this purely to understand the complex public relations mechanics of Tom Cruise's life.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the sources note that Cruise was first introduced to the religion by his first wife, Mimi Rogers, back in 1986. And over the decades, his association has forced him to navigate intense institutional scrutiny. For instance, the sources detail historical frictions, noting that the UK government actually banned the founder, L. Ron Hubbard, from entering the country in 1968.
Right, and they also outline current, ongoing legal issues. There are active lawsuits in the United States against the leader, David Miscavige, who is reportedly a close friend of Cruise and even served as his best man.
The sources also cite actions by the UK Charity Commission, who reprimanded a Scientology-linked addiction charity called Narconon UK.
They even detail local controversies like Govia Thameslink Railway removing signs pointing to St. Hill Manor.
It is a massive amount of external pressure pushing against the hull of that submarine.
To use your analogy, yeah.
And in 2005, the hull actually cracked. That was the year the PR engine overheated in public.
Oh, 2005. You have the infamous couch jumping incident on Oprah, where his declaration of love for Katie Holmes felt intensely erratic.
Yes.
And then just a month later, you get the incredibly heated interview with Matt Lauer on the Today Show.
That interview is a crucial case study for this deep dive. It stemmed directly from his religion's strict opposition to psychiatry and the use of antidepressants.
Right. He went on national television and heavily criticized Brooke Shields for using antidepressants to treat postpartum depression.
It was very intense.
Very. He called psychiatry a pseudoscience and combatively told Matt Lauer that he was glib. The backlash to that was immediate and massive.
It completely hijacked the press tour for War of the Worlds.
And later, the public scrutiny intensified even more with the very public divorce filed by his third wife, Katie Holmes.
Which the sources report was orchestrated in part to protect their daughter Suri from the organization.
All of these moments revealed the chaotic machinery operating beneath that polished surface.
Right.
The public saw the friction and they found it deeply uncomfortable. So what does this all mean for you, the listener? It's like Cruise is the ultimate franchise manager, but the franchise is his own life.
That's a great way to put it. How does a man whose entire existence relies on control react when his private life becomes a global liability?
He seals the hatches.
Exactly. When the PR slipped in 2005, he fired his incredibly powerful publicist, Pat Kingsley.
And replaced her with his sister.
Right, keeping the controls strictly in the family. And then, eventually, he just locked the doors to the factory entirely.
This raises an important question about modern celebrity architecture, doesn't it?
It really does. Since 2008, the sources point out that Cruise has strictly forbidden interviewers from asking him about his religion, his family, or his private life.
Nothing is off limits, except everything personal.
Right. He refuses to participate in the modern culture of celebrity oversharing.
He essentially struck a silent bargain with the global audience. Like, I will not tell you a single thing about my personal life, but in exchange, I will physically drive a motorcycle off a cliff for your entertainment.
And the audience accepted the trade.
They really did.
He communicates his value almost exclusively through extreme physical dedication. And on the rare occasions he does engage with industry politics, it is highly curated to reinforce his brand as the protector of Hollywood.
Like returning his 3 Golden Globe Awards in 2021?
Precisely. He returned them in protest over the Hollywood Foreign Press Association's lack of diversity and ethical issues.
Right.
It was a calculated, high-impact public relations move that aligned perfectly with his image as a champion of the industry's integrity while requiring zero personal vulnerability.
It is a masterclass in narrative control. So bringing all of these threads together from this massive stack of sources.
That's a lot to process.
It really is. But the core insight we've extracted today is that the Tom Cruise we see, the guy risking hypoxia at 25,000 feet.
The guy holding his face perfectly still for 60 agonizing takes under 16 shades of gray reflectors.
Exactly. The guy landing his helicopter at a rural English manor. That guy is a man whose entire survival depends on total, unrelenting control.
He took the chaos of a fractured childhood and forged it into an unmovable force of discipline. He built a billion-dollar high-performance engine just to keep himself safe.
But I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over as we wrap up.
Okay, what is it?
As Cruise steps out of his invincible, death-defying action hero armor to release a highly vulnerable, dark, meta-comedy like Digger this October, will the intense pressure of prestige vulnerability finally cause cracks in that perfectly controlled public persona to show again?
That's the big question.
Or has he finally, after 40 years of intense, unblinking friendliness, perfected the greatest, most impenetrable character of his entire career, Tom Cruise?
It's the ultimate role, and, the whole world is buying a ticket to watch.
Thank you so much for joining us as we unpacked this deep dive into the sources today. It's been a fascinating conversation, and we can't wait to explore the next stack of information with you soon. Keep questioning the narrative, and we'll see you next time.